those that don't know, we're talking about the whole complete OpenAI Sam Altman firing Saga situation.
Hmm.
And from from our perspective as a customer of OpenAI, how that process basically made us feel and how we are thinking of going to other platforms or competitors, and is it doom and gloom or are we accelerating? Kind of the whole thing.
Yeah. So far, I mean, there's been very little. I mean, ultimately, if we changed nothing, essentially.
Yeah, we just added more of their stuff. We just added GPT-4 Turbo.
Yep, exactly. Now, one thing I did see, I don't know if you've seen this, Ross, but after this happened, and maybe it's just more because I'm paying more attention now after the drama happened, but it seems like also other people are paying more attention. And I've been watching Reddit a bit more, Twitter a little less, actually. And Reddit is full. It's almost like the movement. And by movement, I mean like people that are aware of the concept of AI and AGI and maybe ASI in the future, but more people seem to be aware of it. And like
Mhm.
these subreddits are just blowing up. Have you seen the Singularity subreddit? It
Mhm.
reminds me like almost of like the crypto stuff in 2017 or UFO people. It's very strange.
Yeah, so like I completely shifted my
Hmm.
entire Reddit feed probably just about a year ago to be only AI related stuff. And it's
Same.
been interesting to see kind of the transition of that. And this event, I think, has propelled the conversation of the quote unquote decels versus the acceleration movement, or the effective accelerationists versus the effective altruists.
Right.
And that whole conversation and what all that means. And I think that's really kind of the takeaway from what happened. Because if we look at just the company timeline,
Hmm.
he was fired and then he's back. So from a company point of view, it's all just information and tweets and hearsay of what happened and the behind the scenes. But in reality, if we kind of take a step back, and if you were just on a beach that week, last week, and you came back, like, oh, he was fired, but now he's back, so nothing's changed. So
Yeah,
okay,
and everything's good, and they're releasing new features.
yeah. But yeah, literally on what is it, on
Wednesday.
Wednesday or Thursday, they released voice for free for everyone, which is insane, by the way. That
Hmm.
So when I was driving to and from Vegas, that was one of the things I used. I had it plugged in, so it was all through my Bluetooth in my car, and it felt like I was just on a phone call.
Hmm.
And I was using ChatGPT voice to do a choose your own adventure story. I don't know if do you remember those books?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. I remember that.
And so I prompted it. I was like, hey, I want to do like some sort of sci-fi
Hmm.
um, lit RPGs, choose your own adventure story. And I did some
Right.
small prompting in one of the initial prompts to be like, I don't want you to take too many actions within the story. I just want you to do one thing and then give me a couple options on how to respond.
Hmm.
And then, I don't know, within 2 or 3 prompts, 30, 60 seconds, I had a enthralling sci-fi epic that was being outlaid in front of my ears, so to speak, about Dr. Alara and the Zemphirians and blah, blah, blah.
You still remember all the names and characters, huh?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and because I did it on the way back. When I drove back from San Diego back to Vegas, I continued the story because in that first drive, I maxed out the credits. I did it for about 45 minutes or an hour. And then I maxed out the GPT-4 credits with voice. But I was having almost an hour-long conversation with an AI about a fantasy and it made the drive go so quick.
That's amazing. I Yeah, I think that's kind of the future as far as of course who knows, right? But I think in the future I think I see an opportunity for that type of automatically generated story, I guess, whatever you would call that. But I played with it a bit. For one thing, I didn't realize. So that literally released on Wednesday? That's what they released in the app?
It was released for free users. You could use
Oh,
it
okay.
on premium, I think a couple weeks ago.
Okay. I think I noticed it first a couple of weeks ago, but I tried it. And I haven't tried the story thing yet. I need to do that. But I tried it and it seems like it's a little buggy because when I try to talk to it, it too quickly thinks I've asked a question, I guess, and it
It
like
cut you
the little
off.
bubble, yeah, it
Yeah.
cuts me off. So I don't know if there's something about my voice or the way I'm talking to, but regardless, yeah, I can see that use case. It seems like
Yeah.
it'll be really interesting.
I noticed that too. It'll cut me off on certain times. So if you just press and hold, if you just put your
Hmm.
finger on the screen while you're talking, it and then you release it, it will just go as long as you're
I
holding
see.
down. So like it's better if you're not sure what you're gonna say right off the top, you can put your finger down.
Right.
But what I realized is once you get into the flow, like once I got into the story and
Hmm.
it would be like, oh, the ship just has a notification, an asteroid's incoming. Do you want to put up your ship's force field or whatever? Or do you want to go fly away or whatever?
Hmm.
And once I got to that point in the story, I was able to just respond kind of like naturally in conversation because it was having a conversation with me. So I think like once you get past that first couple, like, oh, I don't know what to say, you can then more easily respond and then it works better with your cadence. Like once I got 15, 20 minutes into that story,
Hmm.
it would perfectly follow like when I would pause or stop and then I could give a longer response.
Got it. Do you think some of it also was the fact that you had to like, did you also have to learn how to prompt the story as you went along?
A little
Or was
bit,
that
and
natural?
and throughout it, I would give it like, "Oh, and by the way, for the narrator, I want
Hmm.
you to do this," and then that helped control the story. So, for example, at one point, I was like, "And for the narrator, I want you also to create an action or response for one of the characters for me to also respond to." So it's not only just an action that happens within the story, but I want you to then create a reaction of one of the characters to that action
Hmm.
and then give me the action and their reaction to respond to. And then it was able to basically take in my response. Oh, let's put up our force fields. It would then give me the entire response of, oh, this is what happened with the ship. This is what Dr. Alara thinks about what you
Hmm.
just did. And here's now how you can respond. So it took that into account and then adjusted the story mid-story.
That is interesting. But it was definitely a more active type of storytelling. Like you were having to literally participate and kind of shape the story, right? Sometimes in a car, I just like to like throw on a podcast or something and just turn my mind off and listen.
Hmm.
So I,
And that's pretty much what I did after the GPT-4 credits ran out. Just went back to podcasts.
oh, gotcha, gotcha. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see. I mean, where that technology goes. Maybe nowhere. Maybe it'll be a dead end, or who knows? Maybe a year from now, there'll be a ton of content factories churning out new AI generated. I mean, I don't know how that would work. I guess someone could have a startup that is like a front end and like just makes it easy to do the stories. I don't know. It's really interesting.
I think we're probably still 10-ish years away, maybe. I don't know, depending on the technology. But
Yeah.
where I see this going is like the Apple Vision Pro or VR headsets. And you take into account text to video creation and AI.
Hmm.
And you then go into the voice thing in the voice example that I just mentioned. It'll get to a point where you're prompting something with your voice and you're telling, like, this is how I want the story to go. And then the AI will not only create what happens, but then it generates a real life looking video of that scene that then plays out right in front of your eyes that you then get to respond to with your voice that then just continues. So it could be like this pseudo video game movie VR AR AI nonsense. I mean, all the
Hmm.
buzzwords, but I think that's where potentially this could go to is like choose your own adventure automated storytelling that is also visual.
Yeah, I agree. But do you think, I mean, that's probably not going to be done by OpenAI, right? That's probably going to be a startup or a business, a company of some kind in
Mhm.
front of that technology.
Yeah.
Although, to be fair, I mean, they are customer facing at this point. So it's interesting.
Yeah. I see someone like an ex-Pixar VP doing something like that.
Yeah.
They'll come up with something, and I mean and that's where it'll start. It'll start with like animated stuff, and
Yep.
like an entire animated scene just plays out right in front of you. But then I'm thinking like, oh, okay, well, where's Unreal Engine and where they're at in terms of their content creation abilities for
Hmm.
rendering stuff that looks ultra realistic?
That's such a good
You
question.
know,
I don't even know how you, because I've never done game programming at all. So I have no clue how you, but I assume with the Unreal Engine, there's a way. Well, yeah, there absolutely is because people use that engine in order to make their own games. But I don't know how you tell it what to do. But there must be some way to hook it into an AI generated thing. I mean,
yeah. I forget the name of the tool, but there's a tool I came across a while back where you could draw like a square
yes.
or rectangles or something, and then it would take that into Unreal Engine, and then it would generate a cityscape or skyscrapers based off of where you have the rectangles. I'm not sure what it also reminds me of, there's another one that was popping off recently. I think it's called TLDR Draw or something.
Exactly. Yeah,
Is
I
that the
think I
one that you're
sent that
thinking
to
of?
you
Yeah, yeah.
or you sent it to me. I didn't try it though, because in the end they wanted my OpenAI API key and I could have created a new one and just dumped it in there, but I wasn't interested
Yeah.
enough to do it,
So
which is actually an interesting topic.
I tried it, and
Hmm.
the demos are way better. I don't know
Yeah.
how they were able to get their demos to look that good.
Just did it a bunch of times,
They
right?
probably, yeah, they probably just did it a few hundred times. But like when I was trying it and trying to basically just copy one of their demos, it was like a yellow rubber ducky on top of a tree, and then you draw a brown thing with a green thing, and then a red blob or a yellow blob. And it's supposed to turn that into a rubber ducky on top of a tree, and it's all over the place. It reminds me of like Mid-Journey V3, like where there's
Hmm.
10 fingers, but it's cool. And I think it shows the progress of the technology and how eventually we'll get to a point where you can draw an interface and then it actually makes a good interface. I think we're still too early for it to be, at least to be in deployment.
It's going to be really interesting, I think, because what you're talking about is, at least in my eyes, partially. And I experienced this recently. I was trying to get some content ready to go about an affiliate marketing site I had during the pandemic, right? That took off, and it took off very rapidly because people were searching for like home gym stuff, right? It was in the home gym niche. And so at one point in the middle of the pandemic, like April or maybe it was earlier than that, it shot up to like 10K a month that I was making from this. And I was making some content about this because I was trying to make content around the idea of you have to be, not only do you have to be in the right place at the right time, but you also have to have the experience to kind of to know how to capture that. But I was trying to have it make a like an image to go with this content. And it got stuck on just, how do I describe this? It, I didn't give it enough information initially to like make I didn't give it enough of the prompt in order to tell it and so I wonder, like, in the future, like, are you ever going to get to a point where you can just draw like a primitive looking UI and it knows enough to generate what you're wanting? I don't know. It just seems like maybe the problem is always going to be how you have to give the computer, or you have to give the system enough information. You have to tell it well enough what you want to do, right? And so I don't know. I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where you can just draw a box and say, I want this to be a UI. You still have to, I guess what I'm saying is you still have to explain to the computer in a very detailed way exactly what you want. And I experienced this with trying to get this image right. And eventually I just said, ugh, forget it. I don't want to put the paragraph in here of what I want this image to be. And also it took weird directions on its own. Like I was specifically telling it, okay, don't include a bag of money on the guy's shoulder. Don't include a stack of bills on the table. That's going to send the wrong idea there. And it would still do it. So I don't know. It's really interesting. But are you using Dolly 2 at this point? Or are you using Midjourney
Dolly
for your stuff?
3.
Dolly 3? Yeah.
Yeah, I canceled Mid-Journey.
I think it's a lot better.
Yeah. And I
But
know for certain things it's probably better, but like for ease of use. Like I don't have to go into Discord. And I think
Yeah,
that's one of the main, and we've realized that with our own product, like the ease of use and the simplicity of the platform supersede function.
absolutely.
Which is kind of a wild statement.
No, I don't think so, because if you make it easy, if you make something easy to do, easy to use,
Hmm.
well, what is an example of this? Like, what's an example of something?
Other than our product. I mean,
There has to be a good
yeah,
example. Maybe in some ways, the iPhone, right? An Android phone, because it's less locked down. And I'm generalizing like so much here. And keep in mind, I haven't had an Android phone in about a decade at this point. But when I did have one briefly, there was a lot you could do with it, right? It was less locked down than like an iPhone. Um, but I will give up some of that capability, which is interesting because I'm an engineer, but I will give up some of that capability for something just being easy to use and reliable and just works every time.
yep. And I think a lot of people were probably in that position when Dolly 3 came out and was just integrated right into ChatGPT. And
Yeah.
now you don't need to log into Discord and do all these weird things. And now I saw that there's a way that in Dolly that you can create, like, I don't know, you can like create codes or something. I don't know. I haven't really looked into that. You can like share style codes or whatever.
Yeah. I saw something about that. So that other people can like recreate it in some way or
Yeah.
something. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was a good move to like put it in the Chat GPT interface
Hmm.
because I'm in that all day anyway. And you're already asking questions to it. And if it can generate images just right there, I mean, that just makes the barrier to doing it so much less. It used to be just a little bit of additional effort to go to Dolly and that interface they had there. So,
I think they'll just keep adding stuff. I'm curious to see if this whole Q star thing is their name or what they're calling GPT-5
mhm.
or whatever it may be. But I don't know. The research I did on initially on all that stuff, it seemed to me that these researchers that are actually creating this stuff, they seem to be a little spooked that it was able to do high school math, I believe.
Right.
Did you
Or
look into
maybe it
any
was
of that?
grade school.
Grade school?
I didn't look into it too much because I saw just not propaganda, right? It's hype. I just saw so much hype on Reddit that getting the real story out, it seems like it's impossible. So I was just like, nah, I'm just going to wait and see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, there was claims that it was AGI, and then
Right.
there's basically strong evidence and strong claims that it's not actually AGI. And now I think, and I think that kind of circles back to that initial idea of this whole decel versus acceleration movement, I guess you could say, that we're now in.
Yeah. And I think so in my head, there, like you said this like probably a week ago or something to me. And you said, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, but basically the cat's out of the bag. Right. And at this point, someone is going to be pursuing these technologies in
Mhm.
some way. And so someone's going to be doing it. So I think they have to keep moving forward unless they can find some way for the entire world to decelerate. I don't see how that could ever work, to be honest.
And now that OpenAI is in the hands of capitalists, there's no way that it's slowing down.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And regardless of a person's beliefs on capitalism versus variations of it, that that's pretty hard to argue against fact. It's going to continue. Someone is going to be doing work on it and continuing
mhm.
to increase it. So I don't understand the decelerate argument with that in mind. And I mean, I think that's true of like many technologies. Like you can think of the nuclear bomb, I mean, or the atomic bomb. I think it would have been hard to make a decelerist. I mean, people were doing it back then, I guess, I'm sure. But the other side would have been continuing to research and improve. So I think there's a bit of that going on.
Yeah.
But also, what is AGI? And I've seen this on Twitter. There's a guy I follow on Twitter very recently. Of course, I can't remember his name. I need to do better. Show notes here. But he's kind of the opinion that no, we are decades from AGI, and he feels even possibly the LLMs are not going to lead to what we consider AGI. But then in his Twitter threads that he's gone out, which I really like them, people have, brought up the interesting question, like, what is AGI?
Mhm.
The You could consider GPT-4 to be AGI in some ways.
It's probably this Gary Marcus guy. He's an AI
Yeah,
researcher, and he basically says, no, we are not even close. AGI would require systems that essentially never hallucinate,
right.
which we know happens pretty consistently all the time.
Yep.
And it was recently shown that other models outside of OpenAI, like Claude 2.1, hallucinate
Hmm.
far more often at scale than GPT-4, which is interesting.
It is.
AGI would require systems that essentially never hallucinate, reliably reason over abstractions, can form long-term plans, understand causality, reliably maintain models of the world, reliably handle outliers. We currently have none of that.
Yeah, and a lot of people's responses, because I saw this thread, I thought it was great. A lot of their responses were to the tune of, "Well, humans can't do that
Hmm.
either."
Oh yeah,
And
here's the.
while
Sorry, go ahead.
no, what were you saying?
Here's that graph. So this was the test. So this was Claude 2's test on how accurate it was able to get responses based off of the length and where that keyword was within the document. And
Wow.
all the red shows the hallucinations or wrong answers.
Mhm.
If you compare this to GPT-4,
That's really interesting.
there's a lot less red.
Mhm. Right, right. Yeah, and
So it's
I've even heard I haven't used Claude 2 a lot, but I've heard that it is so censored that it's almost unusable.
yeah, yeah. So I think as more information comes out about the next model, apparently it's codenamed Moby is another thing. Mm.
Really?
Yeah, apparently GPT-4 Turbo was codenamed Arrakis from Dune,
Right.
but Moby, I don't know.
Moby, yeah, I don't know where that's coming from. I guess maybe the whale? I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
Code names are supposed to be meaningless.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that could be kind of fun. We could come up with code names for ours.
You wanna release with a different code name each time?
Version 2 release. I mean, that's what Apple
Yep,
does on their big releases when they do big releases.
they do. They do. Yeah, that's true.
We could do
But yeah,
one that's
so
like more, we could hold back some stuff and put out like a whole update that's thematic almost. Like, oh, we just added a bunch of updates that do and support this function, like customization of the platform, for example. So like we
mhm.
could do the login page, maybe color of the dashboard or the headers, and like we put all of that into one rolling update, and then that becomes like a next major release.
That could be interesting. The problem becomes it becomes hard to, like, release. It becomes hard to do that, actually, without having separate branches of the code and maintaining them kind of independently.
Mm-hmm.
So it almost becomes easier, at least in my eyes, to simply do continuous releasing. Once you get a feature, get it out. That being said, our product is different in many ways from what Apple does. They're often releasing huge pieces of code that run on the device. So like it's a binary essentially, right? It has to be delivered to the device. You need that actual code. Whereas with an web application, it's easier to distribute, right? Every time they visit the web application, it's the latest version of the code.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm saying, I guess, is they've already probably dealt with this for years and they're experts at it. So, but yeah, it could be interesting to definitely use themes and stuff with the releases.
Yeah.
And what do you think though about the fact that because I've been thinking about this recently, ever since the drama happened. Well, actually, what got me thinking about this, what I'm about to talk about, is every time OpenAI does a new release, right? It seems like something goes down, basically. Something in the API gets affected or somewhere else in their platform. Last week, we thought it was the API that went down briefly for a couple hours, but it was actually their chat interface.
Mm-hmm.
And that got me thinking, like, why isn't OpenAI just focusing on being a platform? Why aren't they focusing on the API, the models, the real value they're providing, and letting other companies take care of the front end?
Yeah. Yeah, the GPTs are kind of a hybrid in between that. It's interesting to see that they want to, maybe that's why one of the reasons why the board was not wanting Sam around as the capitalist in charge, where they're releasing more front end stuff for users
Yeah.
and more commercialized in utility. It is interesting though, like I did come up on an article when they released GPT-2, and
Hmm.
they were quoted as saying that this is going to destroy humanity and blah blah blah. So I think it all comes with a grain of salt for marketing,
Oh,
that
yeah.
every single version is going to have that tagline or that mentality. And for us, I think we just need to make sure that as long as they are stable with their API, because I think that coincided with the release of voice. So they probably had with free voice. So they probably had how many people in India go and download ChatGPT voice and started using it immediately by the tune of tens, maybe hundreds of millions of people
Hmm.
instantly. So I can understand like that, and I think it'll be interesting when they do the next release like that, if something similar happens.
Yeah, it will be interesting. But it's also interesting to me that they feel like they have to be on the front end enough to where they've obviously created the Chat GPT interface. They're building a
Mhm.
lot of functionality there. They've got an app now where there's been a lot of functionality exposed. So they are consumer facing, which I think the original vision, or at least I mean, it seemed like the original vision was, hey, we're going to build an API, we're going to build the models, and then we're going to open that as an ecosystem, which allows people to build on top of, which is exactly what we're doing. So I'm just curious, like, how far are they going to go with this? Are they going to start doing various use cases? And maybe they should focus on getting the API right, get that completely stable, improve the models. Maybe that should be their, but who knows? Maybe once, because they've generated, this is only one, oh, another thing that surprised me the other day. One article said it's been a year since GPT 3.5 came out.
Mhm.
And that just kind of blew my mind because it seems like it's been so much longer than a year.
Yeah, I mean, it was what, the 17th of last year, I think?
Oh, I don't remember the exact date, but
Of
yeah,
November 17th last year, I think.
so
It
a
was
year.
about November, like it was right before Christmas that I started playing with it for the first time.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we're right in the thick of it.
we're right in the thick of it. Yeah. And maybe now that it's getting to a point where they're reaching almost what feels like a critical mass, maybe they're going to back off a bit and work more on the API and the model improvements. But yeah, we'll have to see. It's interesting.
I think GPT-5 will be an interesting update to see if they go multi, like, because now that GPT-4 Turbo has the multimodal, maybe. And so the one interesting thing is the context window of input is 128K. Output
Hmm.
is still 4K.
Mm.
So when will they
Okay.
release an output model that has, will that be GPT-5 maybe?
What is that use case though? I guess you could output like a book, right? And
Yeah.
publish it.
Yeah. Because I think that's what Claude 2.1 was touting, was their output is now, I think, 200K. Input and output is 200K. For us, I think it's useful, especially within context of conversations, because then that context window just gets bigger and bigger, and we can add in more information into that context window
But
of
that's the input context window, right?
correct, of the input. So
Yeah.
the AI has more context, more information to provide a better response.
Right. That part I see a lot of value in increasing the
Yeah.
size of it.
And
I
then
see
on
a
the
lot of
output,
value.
for our use case, it's still, it doesn't need to be any longer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The longer it is, more of a detriment actually in many
Hmm.
cases.
Yeah. I think it's mainly going to be used for content generation sites like Copy AI, Jasper. I would love to see their revenue numbers over the last 6, 12 months.
I forgot about Jasper, actually. Jasper.ai, right?
They were
They were kind of the
huge. And now crickets.
Yeah, exactly. And they
Mhm.
were like the front end for GPT, basically,
Mm,
because I think that's how I first used GPT-3 is through them.
yeah. They got
Hmm.
them and Copy AI got early access to GPT-4, I think like 6 months early. And that's why Copy AI was so good. But even Copy AI too, now I don't hear anything from them.
Right.
And both Copy AI and Jasper, I did content brand deals with. Multiple.
Really?
Multiple. Yeah. And I mean, and that was just one of those things that you saw, or that I saw at least, with just kind of being in the AI content creator space,
Hmm.
where if I do a brand deal, then, oh yeah, then I see a couple other creators that are in the similar field as me doing similar brand deals. And Jasper AI was like the number one that
Yep.
was just paying everybody. And now they're not.
Did you ever use it for content creation?
Never.
Yeah,
Not
because I don't think at
Jasper.
that time you weren't really focused on SEO, but I was right there in the middle of that using, I think I tried both Jasper.ai and Copy.ai. And at that time, they were almost useless for like real stuff. Like if you were just doing what they call article spinning and just releasing that on a completely auto generated site, maybe you could use it for that, but it certainly wasn't making world class articles. And maybe that's always the case with these type of things. But yeah, it was interesting. And I've heard stories though from kind of the Reddit community. On the Reddit community, there's this Just Start subreddit, or at least there was. I haven't looked at that in about 2 or 3 years now at this point. But there were stories of people creating basically auto generated sites and using the GPT-3 to do it. And they were making it. What would happen is they would make a decent amount of money pretty quickly, actually, because Google would rank them fairly fast because they were just throwing up all this content and they were bound to find some keywords that could rank quickly. So they'd make a boatload of money and then the site would get either de-indexed by Google or something like that. Anyway, the point is, I don't know how those sites, Jasper.ai and Copy.ai, are doing. I would think that since you can just go to Chat GPT now and it was cheaper, I think they're probably
Yeah.
losing a lot of customers.
Fundamentally, the way that I always use content spinning or AI content generation is in
Hmm.
chunks. If I ever copied and pasted a full, like, it's always not going to work.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
yeah, 100% fail rate all the time. But
Yep.
using it to generate a paragraph within a section does work.
Hmm.
So it's like being able to have your Google Doc on one screen and then ChatGPT on another screen, and then generating paragraphs, copying and pasting them in, formatting it, writing another sentence, deleting that sentence, putting this chunk here. Like, that's how you do content AI generation, because it allows you to control still the format and the structure of an article to include your main keyword 5 to 7 times. You're supporting 4 keywords 2 to 3 times, having
Hmm.
your keyword in the title and the first question, in the header and the H1s and the H2s and the URL slug in the meta, alt descriptions. Those are like, all of that's needed. And if you just copy and paste an article from chat, you get none of that. So
That's a very good point.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know how to describe the way I use Chat GPT, but I never just take its output and just use it
Hmm.
without editing it. I mean, it's not, especially nowadays, it seems like it's almost leaning towards without, and maybe you have some custom instructions in there or something to where your stuff is ready to go. But it seems like just by default today, it's very wordy, very verbose,
Yes.
and the language it uses is very, what would you call that? Like almost like more than college level language that it's using.
Yeah, it's perfected writing. And I think that's where a lot
Mm,
of it comes into play. Like, I think a lot of SEO and a lot of content is going to have a coming to Jesus moment in the next 6 to 12 months, because everything the last years has been written for Google. But Google tells us we need to have expertise, authority, and trust. EAT,
Right.
the EAT model.
Yep.
And I know there's another E now. I forget what the other E is, but
Wow.
EEAT, I think, is the whole thing now. Yeah, Neil
Mm.
Patel always talks about it. But
Right.
content needs to be written for the user to provide them value so that they can then take action. That's what Google wants to see. Does this
Right.
article actually give the user something? Not, is this article optimized for me to index it within a certain result,
Right.
which is how everything is created right now. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how that changes when most of the content is written in that format, which is obviously not original or authentic.
Yep.
Extra adjectives is the main thing that I always pick up on. It adds in adjectives where I would not typically add in an adjective. And I actually was working on an article to get some ideas right before this. And here's just a quick sentence. In the rapidly evolving digital landscape, AI automation agencies are revolutionizing client engagement through the integration of conversational AI chatbots. This groundbreaking technology is not, so it's like that right
Yeah.
there. This groundbreaking technology, and put that extra adjective, groundbreaking, is not needed, but it adds those in all over the place. And it's all fluff. And I think that's, people are starting to recognize that as this professional fluff
Yep.
that AI is generating and is no longer needed.
That's really interesting, actually. And I'll tell you why. So I agree. I think that's a good way to describe it. Like it currently today, it defaults to adding a lot of fluff and it adds a lot of complex language also that like you wouldn't, in most audiences, you wouldn't be that complex with some of the word choices you use and stuff. I don't have a good example, but I'm sure you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I wonder why it is like that. Is it because a lot of the web is just full of a lot of fluff like that? It's,
I think yeah. I mean, for the last few years, I think it has been.
mhm,
But and I think this is where the custom instructions and personalizing the AI really come into play.
mhm,
So what I would probably do in that scenario is start telling it like, hey, here's what you gave me. Here's why I don't like it. Here's a better version as an example.
right.
And then tell it, don't add in extra fluff or keywords, and then try to work with it from there to see how it can generate content that is more akin to what I would actually type, or that sounds like.
I agree with it. And I think though, that, and this may be an opportunity for startups kind of like us, but I don't think the existing chat GPT interface, how do I describe this? It's more like it supports the pattern of going in, creating a conversation, and then you get out of it and you come back and create a new conversation.
Mhm.
But using chat GPT for business use cases, what you want to do is, I don't know how to describe, you want repeatable things, right? You want to set up
Templatized. It has to be
templatized.
templatized. Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe the GPT's functionality they're working on, create a GPT kind of gets you there in some ways, but
Some way. I think it does, because it, like the laundry buddy example, I think is the one that was going crazy viral. It doesn't do anything other than just how to tell you to do good laundry, but that requires a lot of custom prompting in order to it to only to do that. So the
Right.
use case is clear, but the technical way to actually implement that is actually kind of difficult, which
Yep.
is counterintuitive. You would think that it would be, it's what it is, what it's giving is easy, so it must be easy. That, I think, concept with GPTs will start to be expanded upon once people can make money from them. And I think this is where, if they still go down this route, I don't even know, but I think it'll be interesting to watch how people start interacting with these quote unquote apps within the ChatGPT interface for their business use cases,
Yep.
because it's all going to be locked down onto their platform.
Yeah. I think that's part of the customer facing thing that they're going like a consumer and SMB focused route. Also enterprise. I mean, we know they're hitting up the enterprise market, but it's going to be interesting to see, like, do they keep doing that? Does their company keep trying to solve those use cases as well as being a platform for the world to build on?
I mean,
Microsoft does that.
I can't see a use case where their consumer revenue outpaces enterprise and API, like their core customer base.
Yeah, that that's an interesting.
Who knows? How many users is there estimated to have paid?
No idea. Let's see.
100 million, 180 million.
That's current users, right?
Yeah.
And then what percentage actually pays? Let's see. Hard to say, but yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, that's the case with most of these markets is that the enterprise is where the real money is. But
Yeah, because for $100,000 enterprise contract, that's what, 50, 20,000, 50,000.
yep,
Yeah, 50,000 people or 5,000 people.
but the consumer market is how you kind of get the word out and people start to learn in the enterprise about these technologies. So I can definitely see why they went the customer or consumer facing kind of route because people hadn't even heard about GPT-3 2 years ago.
Or even this year, I was talking with my buddy we did a poll at Thanksgiving
Hmm.
where how many people have actually used ChatGPT?
Right.
At our
How many?
Thanksgiving, it was more people knew about the Sam Altman OpenAI news because of the news, but they hadn't actually used ChatGPT themselves. So they were aware of it, but they hadn't actually used it.
Right. And you said it was like what,
3 out of
15
15.
people?
Yeah. So excluding myself, you, and then my mom, because she had used it basically for me telling her to use it for our Christmas card.
Right.
And then one of my other friends who's younger who does social media.
Hmm.
And no one else. And then at my buddy, he said that at his Thanksgiving, it was 0 people. 0 people used it.
That's amazing.
So we're still so early, I think,
Super
in
early.
the grand scheme. We're so in our bubble, but
Well, yeah. And relatedly, so like maybe 3 people had used Chat GPT at your Thanksgiving that we were there at. How many had used the paid version? Probably
well,
none,
I
right?
mean, it was either 3 or 2.
Yeah. And I mean, we know that like GPT-4 it completely outperforms GPT 3.5. We know that for sure. We actually, in our
Yeah.
platform, we changed it, GPT-4 to be the default because it's so much more effective. But I would bet that 90% of people out there, I don't know if it's really 90, I'm just making that up, but 90% of people probably have not tried and experienced GPT-4.
Mhm.
So, and GPT 3.5 Turbo, in my opinion, it doesn't perform as well as the original GPT 3.5. So they are not getting that aha moment. And I think it also explains a lot of stuff about why which I agree. I think skepticism is healthy. I also have skepticism about, I don't believe there's going to be like an AGI. I don't believe there's going to be an ASI, but I think it explains a lot of the skepticism. And people are like, how do you use Chat GPT? They've only used 3.5 Turbo, so they haven't experienced what it can really do.
And having that aha moment within something that and you're familiar with, I think is the key. So telling people like, oh yeah, you can do it. Choose your own adventure story. Okay, cool. Like that's cool. That's a novelty, but it's tough to be able to be like, okay, well, you need to use it for your job and basically do anything in your job. You can do it better, faster, easier with this.
Yeah.
Well, that's
How?
yeah. How? Yeah, exactly.
How do I get started?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think that could potentially be an avenue for a lot of these AI, quote unquote, AI agencies to help businesses learn
I think
about
so.
this stuff. Like, hey, do you not know how to use AI for your business? Well, let us help you do it with the right tools in the right way. So that way you actually get something out of it rather than it just being a hassle to learn. And I think that's where we've also seen from our customers too, like being able to try to sell AI. No one actually cares or knows what AI even is yet. So trying to sell it to people is kind of a moot point because you're selling something that people don't care about or understand even.
Yeah. I mean, so many things that you said there that I want to touch on, but I mean, the most important one there. So because it is you in order to learn how to talk to an LLM, to an AI, you have to practice it, right? And I think you're absolutely right that these AI
Yeah.
automation agencies, they are going to fulfill a serious need. And it's inherently going to be an SMB focused and enterprise need, but someone's going to have to, someone ultimately, and we've seen this for 30 years now, but someone has to talk to a computer. Someone has to know how to talk to a computer to tell it what to do. Now, the programming languages have changed over time. And now we're seeing another change where ChatGPT is kind of becoming a language that you program in. But these AI automation agencies are going to have to come in, help work out what use case, let the company know, hey, this is possible. Here's what we can do. Here's what you can do with AI. Here's what you should do with it. Here's what it does well.
Mhm.
There's so many opportunities there.
Yeah. Yeah. Just beginning too.
Yeah.